Welcome back to Life's Chillin'. My name is Avital, and this week's Parshat is Parshat Korach. And Parshat Korach tells the story of a rebellion led by Korach against Moses and Aaron. Korach was a Levite, and he was a leader in his tribe, and he sort of rose up against Moses and Aaron, accusing them in essence of nepotism and of appointing themselves to more leadership than they should have had. It was Korach and 250 men who were leaders amongst the Jewish people, amongst the children of Israel. The Torah tells us that they were leaders of the assembly and men of renown. And the Torah continues by saying, they gathered against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, "It is too much for you. For the entire assembly, all of them are holy, and Hashem is among them. Why do you exalt yourselves over the congregation of Hashem?" They're basically saying, who appointed you? Who told you that you could be in charge? Why you, Moses, and you put Aaron in charge of all of the priestly service? That really seems like self-aggrandizement. Why did you do this? Who told you that you were in charge? And this was a painful accusation for Moses and for Aaron. And they went through an entire process where Moses said basically that tomorrow, everybody's going to present these offerings to God, and God's going to decide who it is that is in charge. It's going to become apparent to everybody who is it that he appoints as leader and as Kohen Gadol, and that's what we're going to do. And so that comes to pass, and before that Moses says that basically if Moses is correct, that the earth should open up and swallow these 250 people and Korach alive. And that is indeed what happened. The earth opened up, swallowed the 250 people and Korach alive, and that was the end. It showed that Moses and Aaron were in charge, that God had appointed them, that they had not appointed themselves. So a really interesting story. And there's a lot that we can take from this week's Parsha and from this interaction. When I did a video on this 2 years ago, I spoke about our response to anger and how it was really beautiful that Moses decided to wait till the next day to decide what to do about Korach. If you want to see that video, I'll link it below. But what I was sort of struck by this year is the connection between Parshat Korach and last week's Parshat Shlach. In Parshat Shlach, if you recall, the Jewish people experienced a big loss. They have left Egypt and have been in the desert and were planning to go into the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. But because of the incident with the spies, the Jewish people are subjected to spend 40 years in the desert. And not only that, but all of the people over the age of 20 are going to die in the desert. They're not going to enter the land of Israel. They're just going to live their lives in the wilderness, and they won't get to see what lay ahead. And part of the accusations that these 250 men made against Moses and Aaron is that they said, "You did not bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey, nor give us a heritage of field and vineyard." I think that line is clearly showing a connection between Parshat Shlach and the fact that the Jewish people weren't going to enter this land flowing with milk and honey like they were initially promised, and Korach's rebellion. I think that it was their response to this loss in their lives, to this loss that they had wanted something that didn't work out from them, and they were angry about it, and they were upset, and they needed to point the finger and blame somebody and say, "You, Moses, you didn't even bring us to the land flowing with milk and honey like you said. You didn't give us this field. You didn't give us vineyards. You didn't give us the things you promised. Here we are going to die in the desert. It's your fault. Who even appointed you?" And that was their response. That was their needing to find blame because they were angry about this loss of something that they had hoped for. And I think that we can learn from Korach and from this rebellion how not to respond to a loss in our lives. That when something goes wrong, we are often looking for a finger to point and somebody to blame and somebody to take the responsibility other than ourselves. But that is not the right response. Things did not end well for Korach because of the way that he went about his emotions and his reaction and his response. when we experience a loss in our lives, we need to be careful not to point the finger, not to blame other people, not to get angry. Even if we're upset inside, it is important to process those feelings properly and not to sort of start behaving erratically and start being so upset about what we have lost. People also tend to be able to build on others' emotions. Korach may have been upset, but he got 250 other leaders to be upset with him and to go to Moses and to do that. We have to be careful when we are upset and when we're in a loss and when we are going through something, not to let those around us, not to have each one of us add to each other's excitement and each other's anger, because it's so easy and then it spirals out of control so quickly. So I think these are some of the things that we can take away from Parshat Korach and from this rebellion with Korach. Not to point blame, not to get angry, not to let our emotions spiral out of control, not to build on top of one another. And that way we can avoid the sort of unfortunate end that Korach had in his life. So I hope you all have a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.